Hi, I'm Judy Goss, founder of Over 40 Females, and welcome to our 20-minute online breakout session, Unraveling the Mystery of the Breast Cancer Virus, featuring Dr. Kathleen Ruddy. Dr. Ruddy is an internationally recognized breast cancer surgeon trained at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. She is the founder and president of the Breast Health and Healing Foundation, a philanthropy dedicated to primary prevention of breast cancer. Her special area of interest is the breast cancer virus. And that's what we're going to hear about today. We know very little about this virus. I, for one, didn't even know it existed before I met Dr. Ruddy. And fortunately, she is here to let us in on the inside story of her experiences. Over 40 Females has weekly educational teleseminars just like this one that range from fashion to finance to building your businesses, strengthening your spirituality, health issues, and endless other subjects. So if you're on the line and you're not a member and want to find out more, please go to over40females.com. Our basic online memberships start at only $17 a month. Okay, Dr. Ruddy, we're ready.
Very good. Thank you very much for having me. The topic under discussion today is the human breast cancer virus, mystery or fantasy. Let's go and look a little bit at the history of this research and try to answer that question. In 1936, Dr. John Bintner, a biologist who was working in Maine, discovered a breast cancer virus in mice. He found that this virus was passed in breast milk, and that any mouse that was exposed to the breast milk, either from its mother or if a mouse was foster nursed from a mother in which this breast cancer virus had infected the breast milk, those mice would develop breast cancer. This was quite a surprise and was not well received by the orthodox scientific community. At that time, they didn't believe there was such a thing as a tumor virus, and so they were very skeptical of Dr. Bintner's experimental results. A young researcher, Dr. Andrew Andervant from Johns Hopkins University, was working at Harvard and spent a summer in Maine with Dr. Bintner, and he became very interested in the question of this breast cancer virus. Dr. Andervant actually had studied viruses when he was at Johns Hopkins, and so he was very intrigued by Dr. Bintner's results. He replicated Dr. Bintner's experiments, and he got the same results. He was able to show in his own experiments that it looked like there was an infectious agent in the breast milk of these mice that was responsible for causing breast cancer. And then he replicated those experiments several years later when he left Harvard and joined the National Cancer Institute, which had just been established in Bethesda, Maryland. Many years went by in which there were various scientists working to look at the question of tumor viruses per se. Dr. Peyton Rouse had discovered a virus in chickens that caused solid tumors. He made that discovery in 1911. No one believed him at the time. But then in the 1950s, Dr. Ludwig Gross, who actually had escaped Hitler's Germany from Poland, arrived in the United States. He was working at the VA hospital in the Bronx, and he discovered a virus that caused leukemia in mice. At this point, Dr. Bintner was working at the University of Minnesota, and he was continuing his experiments. And so over the course of the next 20 years or so, there was more information about the existence of tumor viruses. In the mid-1950s, moving a little bit closer to the 1960s, scientists down at the National Cancer Institute began to look for evidence of the mouse leukemia virus in children with leukemia, and they thought that they found evidence of that. In the meantime, other researchers down at the National Cancer Institute discovered dozens of other tumor viruses, and so the question of whether or not there was a mouse breast cancer virus was pretty much confirmed. In addition, the electron microscope had been discovered and developed, and so they were actually able to see there was a breast cancer virus in mice. Of course, the question was, does this virus exist in any other animals, and does it exist in humans? They found the virus in rats. They found it in monkeys. They have since found it in cats. They have found evidence of it in dogs. And Dr. Beatrice Pogo, who's featured here on this slide, found evidence of this virus, actually one that was very, very similar to the mouse virus, in approximately 40% of the human breast cancer specimens that she examined. Now, Dr. Pogo had started her work at the Rockefeller Institute, where Peyton Rouse had discovered the first tumor virus in chickens, and she moved to Mount Sinai School of Medicine, and she was working with Dr. Holland, who was originally from the National Cancer Institute and then was the director of cancer research at Roswell Park Cancer Research Center in New York. The two of them joined forces at Mount Sinai, and in 1995 reported that they had found this virus. It was 95% similar to the mouse virus, as I say, in 40% of human breast cancer specimens. One thing that they did discover when they found the virus in the breast cancer was that the virus did not exist in the normal tissue around the tumor. This added increased evidence that it was the virus itself that was responsible for causing the tumor. They also checked to make sure that their experiments had not been contaminated. The mouse breast cancer virus is very commonly used in laboratory animals in all kinds of research that we do on breast cancer today, and so obviously anyone who might remain skeptical about the findings that were published by Dr. Holland and Dr. Pogo might say, well, there might have been a contamination. Well, they made sure that there wasn't. There were very technical ways that they could do that. So they actually found what they called a human breast cancer virus. Actually, the technical name is human mammary tumor virus, and that was reported for the first time in 1995. They published their results in peer-reviewed journals. So all of the data that I discuss here have been reported in peer-reviewed journals. And this is a picture of the virus. It has been analyzed very closely. Multiple researchers, not just Pogo and Holland, but other researchers around the world, actually working at separate academic institutions on 4 continents, have found evidence of this virus actually coming out of human breast cancer specimens. Way back in the 1950s and 60s, as the doctors like Dr. Bittner were considering that perhaps there might be a human breast cancer virus, and they knew that the virus was passed in the breast milk of mice and in cats, by the way. The question was, well, might this virus exist in humans? And they began to look at human breast milk, and this has been done on more than one occasion. Most recently, the virus has been found in 8% of normal human breast milk. In women who have a positive family history of breast cancer, or they have had a benign breast biopsy, so there was some reason that they had a surgical biopsy, the virus has been found in 21% of those cases. The most interesting results have occurred most recently. In April of 2015, Dr. Holland, who is the past president of the American Association for Cancer Research, he's also the past president of the American Society for Clinical Oncology. These are 2 very large, very prestigious organizations. Dr. Holland was at the annual meeting of the American Association for Cancer Research in April of 2015. It was held in Philadelphia. And at that meeting, Dr. Holland revealed to the 10,000 participants there that he had found evidence of this virus in 94% of the metastatic fluids of women with stage 4 breast cancer. So let me explain a little bit what that sentence means. Women with stage 4 breast cancer have their breast cancer that's growing in the major organs of their body. The cancer starts in the breast, but it then moves and sets up new tumors in places like lung, liver, bone, brain. Many times when the tumor starts to grow in the lung, it grows in multiple locations within the lung, and the lung, in reaction to this invasion of breast cancer cells, begins to make what's called a malignant pleural effusion. So fluid begins to build up around the lung, and the fluid, which is called pleural effusion, contains many, many of these breast cancer viruses. In the same way, when the tumor begins to grow in the liver starts to produce fluid that surrounds it. It's called acidic fluid, and that can sometimes fill up the belly. And when Dr. Holland and Dr. Pogo examined these malignant effusions, that's what they're called, the fluid that collects in the lung and the fluid that collects in the abdomen, and they examined that, they found the breast cancer virus in 94% of the women that they examined. Now, I don't have a slide here, or maybe I do. Nope, okay, let me just continue. This is a picture of breast cancer cells as they're moving around the body. Another interesting question that sometimes comes up from the scientists who are very expert in the field of tumor viruses is, well, where exactly does this virus live if it's living in human breast cancer cells? Can you tell us exactly where in the DNA it is found? And about 10 years ago, the scientists weren't exactly sure exactly where the virus was. But most recently, they have found what they call the flanking sequences. So the flanking sequences, you might be able to think of this as a street address. So, you know, you've got your street address and you've got your zip code, and if anybody wants to find where you live, they have your address, they've got your zip code, they can say, oh, she lives in that house. So the flanking sequences are like the address in the genome, in the DNA. So there have been multiple now cataloging of the flanking sequences of this virus. It was an important hurdle. It's an important question to answer, and it's been answered. So we know exactly where inside the human DNA this virus parks itself. Now, this is the slide I was thinking about when it comes to understanding the relationship between the mice that carry the breast cancer and the women who get the breast cancer. We know that there are areas in the world where breast cancer is not very common, parts of Japan, for instance, and we know there are parts of the world where breast cancer is very common, like the United States and Europe. And for many years, we have felt that this is probably related to diet or other environmental factors, and those certainly do play a part. But one of interesting paper that was presented looking at the relationship between where the mice who carry the breast cancer virus live and where the women who get the breast cancer live, when they looked at the map of the world, they found that these mice with breast cancer live in the areas of the world where the women have the highest risk for breast cancer. And so one of the criteria that needs to be satisfied for proving that a virus causes a cancer is to be able to say, where is the virus, and is it in close proximity to the people who are getting the tumor caused by that virus. So this was a very important paper that was published several years ago. Now it's 15 years ago. It was published in the British Journal of Cancer. And yes, indeed, the mice that carry the breast cancer virus live where the women get the breast cancer, have the highest risk for breast cancer. Altogether, you've got to check off, depends on who you're talking to, but usually 6 or 7 different, shall we say, criteria for proving that a virus causes a tumor in humans. You can't just do a randomized trial where you give half of the women the breast cancer virus and the other half a sugar pill and see who gets the virus, who gets the cancer, and then make a determination. So you've got to come at your proof by indirect means. And the fact that the mice with the breast cancer live where the women with breast cancer also live, the fact that we have kept finding evidence of the virus in women with breast cancer, whereas women who do not have breast cancer have very, very little evidence of the virus. There have been dose-response relationships that have been documented. Carolyn Ford in Australia did that. Dr. Holland and Dr. Pogo have repeatedly found the virus. Other scientists around the world have repeatedly found the virus in women with breast cancer. And so Dr. Holland, at the end of almost 40 years of his research on this subject, and at the end of over 100 years of research altogether, he has said that these composite data, by which he means everything that we know, all of the data that we have thus far, suggest that this virus, the human mammary tumor virus, does play a role in a significant portion of breast cancer, and as breast cancer advances and becomes metastatic, plays an increasing role. The point of discussing this now, I think, as far as I'm concerned, and I think as far as many scientists are concerned, is that we really need to turn our attention very seriously to answering this question: does the virus cause breast cancer in women? We've got probably 80-85% of that answer is yes. We need to complete the research. If this virus is responsible for 40 to 70% of breast cancer, and that's what it looks like, maybe more, we really need to give this our full attention. At this point, less than $100,000 a year is spent supporting this research, and that obviously just doesn't add up, not considering what the evidence suggests at this point. So the objective is to complete the research on the breast cancer virus, finish the work, answer the question once and for all, does this virus cause breast cancer in women? And if it does, develop antiviral therapy that can address the issue for those women who are either infected or who have developed breast cancer as a result of the infection, and develop a vaccine to prevent the rest of the women in the world, 3.5 billion women in the world, from getting this disease. The Breast Health and Healing Foundation is dedicated to the primary prevention of breast cancer. That's my Breast Cancer Foundation. It's a 501c3. If you go to the website, breasthealthandhealing.org, you'll be able to download an executive summary of my forthcoming book, which will be available for free. It is a story of the research on the breast cancer virus. It includes a bibliography, so if there are scientists in the audience who are interested in actually looking at the data, it's there and available for your review. The Breast Health and Healing Foundation has as its mission to help support the research to answer the question, does a virus cause breast cancer in women? And if the answer is yes, then to move forward so that we can identify those women who are infected, identify those women whose breast cancer has been caused by the virus, and then develop a vaccine so that we can prevent this form of the disease. Thank you very much for your attention, and please go to the website. If you'd like to get in touch with me, leave any comments and so forth, the contact information is there. Thank you.